You may not think it, judging by the fact that I am wearing a coat and it's grey and miserable outside, but it is summer here in Ireland and you may have started to see more of these things out there. Well, thankfully now I've had mine for long enough to feel confident to do a proper review on it. And the question is a TentBox the perfect solution for somebody who wants to go camping but doesn't want the maintenance costs and the lack of space that a camper van can provide? Or is it just a big, useless, expensive tent that will reduce your economy and get in the way? Well, on this episode of 47 Motorsports, we're going to find out. As with any 427 Motorsports review, this is not paid promo. I bought this thing myself, I have used it myself, TentBox have nothing to do with this. In fact, they don't even know I'm making this video, so any opinions, herein, whatever, entirely my own. With that said, oh god, that's what all the cringy YouTubers say. Without further ado, let's get started. So, what is it? Well, put simply, it's a tent that goes on the roof of your car. This is my car. There are many like it, but this is my own. Some see it as an expensive tent, some see it as a cheap camper. For me, it was somewhere in the middle. I kinda just like the look, too. Rather than the misery of trying to assemble a tent in the pissing rain or having rides with everyone around you, these are designed to be very easily erected and derected and easy to put away. You also don't need to find a perfect grassy pitch to put it on either. They've been around for a little while now. I remember looking at them around 2018 or so, but as you'd expect, they've exploded in popularity since the event in 2020, and people couldn't travel the world. Turn your car into a camper van, they said, but is it that simple? Well, it kinda depends on what car you're starting out with, I suppose. It's easier if you have a wagon because you probably have those long bars that go down the top, which means all you need to get are the crossbars. But it's not necessary. I mean, I've seen people with Fiat 500s and Dodge Rams putting TentBoxes on, so it's kinda on a case-by-case basis. You can get in touch with the TentBox team though, and they'll provide you with all the support you need, whether it'll work, what racks you need, and all the rest. Regardless of whether you have the long bars though, you will need these crossbars. TentBox do sell these, but you can go and get your own, and if you already have some, that's even better. For my use case though, I wanted to make sure that nothing would go possibly wrong, and if anything did happen, I wanted to be able to say, nope, I followed all your instructions and I did as I was told, this is your problem. So you might want to do what I did and ask the TentBox team to tell you what ones you need. There are a few factors you need to think about though, and one of them is height. I wouldn't want to go much higher than this, to be honest, because I'm not that tall. But if you're climbing into the likes of a Land Rover Defender or something like that, it's quite a climb up there. And as you'll see when we start to assemble and disassemble, the height can make a difference. I didn't really want to carry a step around with me, so this here for me is the perfect height. But if you have an awning, like I have, this vehicle's not very high, so you're not going to have an awning sitting the way it's supposed to with it going down. This one will actually go up. Both do work. Totally up to you. If you're doing it in the rain, it's not ideal because all the water will puddle here, but that's kind of on you really. But now it's time to finally get to the part you want to see, and that's the assembly. It's on. That's the first part of the assembly, but really what we mean is actually making the TentBox open. And it's quite simple. There are some Velcro stitches on the sides with a nice big long zip, and the reason it's got a big long zip is so that you can throw it halfway around the car and not have to scramble to get at it. So you unzip that, do that, walk around. We would be quicker, but when you're trying to film it, it takes a bit longer. Then you just walk around the whole thing. Nice. How's it actually? So your zip comes the whole way around and winds up here. Now you don't have to necessarily pop them up, but I do just to make sure it's going to be clear. Then, quite simple, you just lift the cover off. And you would throw it open. So this is the first 427 Motorsports where there's a workout involved. And there you are. There's the TentBox. Now there's two things you need to remember when you're opening it. And the two things are the two straps. There's one strap here, pop and pull, and then you do the same on the other side. Then this side, pop and pull. Now there's a couple of different ways to do this part. as I'm vertically challenged, this is how I do it. On top of your tent box here, you have a ladder. What I tend to do is undo the fixings on the ladder, like so, and lift it off. Again, I'm vertically challenged. Undo the strap. The ladder is included, by the way, and it's telescopic, like so. So what I do is lift it up and over then, make sure you don't hit anything on the other side, and latch it back in. You might be wondering why I do it like that, and that's because the ladder actually forms the basis of how you open the tent box. It'll make sense now. By doing it that way, hangs over here, like so. Now to open your tent box, the further out you do it, the more leverage you have. I don't know whether you did physics class in high school, but it will come in handy now. Then pull. Now, because I did that so long with the ladder, it does make it harder to get in. So, whether it's recommended or not, I tend to just do it like that. See, because it's not fully locked, it can move. And that's where I kind of have issues with the tent box, to be honest. Just really in the ladder. I don't overly rate the ladder. But either way, we now have a tent box. Now, I'll show you how you get it all pretty looking, and then we'll get inside.
The idea of pegging might get some people excited, eh?
Well, unfortunately, the only pegging to do your tent box will be inside the tent box. Anyway, we've it all tidied up. Now you might be wondering what this flap here is for. And that is, as Brian mentioned, for pegging. These are for that rain cover on the top. Now, I know this is the most time consuming part of the entire thing, to be honest, because everything else, once you have it opened, you can be inside the tent. I guess that's kind of the difference. If it's pissing it down with rain, as soon as you have it opened, you can be dry, because this part can all be done from inside. So let's hop inside. So next is the pegs. Now how these work is, this isn't actually necessary. This is your rain cover, and this guarantees that you'll be watertight inside. But obviously, that's gonna flap about in the rain. So these pegs go into these little slots in here. You might have seen them whenever we were doing the thing earlier, but thankfully there's little pipes. You kind of have to feel for them. Put the pole in. Now this part can be sketchy. The very first time I did this, one flung out and nearly smashed something, so just be very careful. So I keep one hand in here, feed it up the shaft, then reach for an eyelet, and there you go. And then you repeat the same process. Well, as you can see, I'm inside the tent, so if it's raining, I'm already dry at this point. So it's not the biggest of deals. Before you know it, you're in a tent box. I didn't do the back too, just because for the purpose of getting this done quicker, but here we are. So what I'll do is comes with mosquito nets, but you can roll them up like this, and then there are little tabs, one here, one on the inside, where you can fold all this up and keep the whole thing open. Now, truth be told, obviously things take a bit longer when you're filming and so on and so forth, but if you've got somewhere and you're literally just throwing this up and getting it done, once you've done it a couple times, you can have this thing assembled in 10 minutes. And that's not bad going. And I would say roughly 7 of that is inside the tent. And as you can see, it's actually quite airy inside here. Now, I've left one skylight open and one skylight closed, just to show you that there are some, but also there doesn't have to be. One thing that is in here, usually I've taken them off because I opened it, is these little hooks. And these hooks go in there like that. Now, I will explain later on the reasoning behind that, but I guess if you wanted to, there's no reason you can't use that for hanging stuff on. I've never done that before. I've actually literally just thought of that idea, but you could. So as you can see, you've got 2 windows, one here and one here. You've also got 2 doors, one behind you and one behind me. It does make it a very airy tent, I must say. Like, this is the TentBox XL. I don't think I'd want to go for anything smaller if it was more than just me. Or you need to be real good friends with whoever you're in the tent with. But as you can see here, it's got plush, soft flooring. Now, I have a bad back, so if you have in any way a gammy back, get an air mattress. completely changes the tenting experience. But for sitting in, it is really comfy. I actually might just leave this up tonight and stay in it tonight, because it's really, really nice to stay in, genuinely. It's blackout inside if you get either blue or green. The orange gives everything a kind of orangey glow in the mornings, and if you hate that feeling of getting up early in the morning because the tent is all bright, you need to get a blue or a green one. Now, all of your poles and things like that are actually supports for the tent, they're all nicely covered with this material, so you don't wake up in the middle of the night because your arse has touched one of the metal poles and it's stone cold, so that's a relief. You also have little pockets on the sides, which are really nice. TentBox actually give you a little like welcome kit, and you get like earplugs, and I broke these, but you get the fairy lights and things like that, and it really adds to the whole experience, to be honest. You can tuck the fairy lights into all the poles as you go along, and it makes it feel really, really cozy. As I said though, for me, an air mattress is a necessity. Now, this is frowned upon according to appropriate actual official TentBox people. They say with the TentBox XL, whatever you do, do not close it with stuff inside it. All your bedding has to come out. If you're taking duvets and things and pillows, that is in fact the case. However, I have found that it has been absolutely hunky-dory to leave a sleeping bag with small pillows, a thin sleeping bag, and the air mattress completely deflated inside, and it's been totally fine, which means at any point, realistically, if I find I need to stay somewhere, if I've been kicked out of the house, I'm ready to camp no matter where I am. A duvet and stuff would be nice, but it's not really necessary because it does get plenty warm in here. There is an add-on thermal liner you can get, which blacks out any TentBox, so no matter what colour you have, it will be totally black, and I am told it is proper toasty with that in it. However, I've never really felt the need to go camping over winter, so I've never bothered. You could also get a diesel heater, or if you're on site, you could run an extension lead in and plug it in that way. It's up to you. The mosquito net here does unzip, and that brings you to the outside world. This is the rain net, and you can put your hand through, and it's nice for stargazing, I have to say. Not that I've done it very often, because I live in Ireland and clouds are more important than scars apparently, but it's there. Trying to think, is there anything else that's relevant? There's a little pouch here, they say, for putting your phone in so you don't lose it in the middle of the night. Never used it for that, but you can. Other than that, it's a tent. I will say, probably a question that's on a lot of people's minds, condensation and things like that, zero. I have never left this thing out to dry. Now granted, I've never had it out in pissing rain or anything like that, but in the middle of the night when you wake up in the tent, usually it's all sweaty and horrible. This thing is perfect. Now if you close all of the windows, the mosquito net doesn't count, that lets air through obviously, but if you close the actual tent material, it'll build up condensation, yes, but anything will if you're in it, so that's not really its fault. But that's why I tend to leave the mosquito nets open and then fold away everything else. But yeah, as for a night's sleep, some of the best night sleeps I've ever had have been in this thing. Obviously compared to a camper van, there's no soundproofing, so I do recommend bringing earplugs if you're a light sleeper like myself, but that's kind of a given with any tent. You do have to remember at the end of the day, this is a tent. It's not a camper van. There's no insulation, there's no like cupboards and amenities. Like, this is a tent. You need to bring everything else with you. This is only part of the camping experience, but as somewhere to sleep and as a tent, this is fantastic. I slept in it in some pretty not great winds. Slept like a baby. Okay, so we've talked about the TentBox, we've shown you what it is, and we've assembled it. I was going to disassemble it, and then I thought, fuck it, I might actually stay on it tonight, so we're going to leave it as it is. But being honest, putting it back down is the same as putting it back up again. Everything you took off, you just put back on. Fold it up, put the cover over, done. But it's not perfect. There are a few little niggles of the TentBox that just rub me the wrong way. First thing is this glaring thing right here. This is the cover. Now, if you want, you can slide it off. Sure, that's not really ideal. What you would love is some kind of strap or something to roll it up and keep it on nice and tidy. And apparently on the older models they did used to do that. Now you can apparently contact TentBox support and they'll sort you out with some, but why? It shouldn't be that way. That should be included. They give you a welcome pack with earplugs and all the rest, but they don't give you anything to strap this mess up. Now, I have a bit of a solution. I rolled it up and then behind here I've got like bungee cords that are attached to the roof rack. So I'll roll it up and then put the bungee cord around it and make it tidy, but that's dumb. That's not how that should be. That's one of the most annoying things, and it always, because it just looks terrible. Second thing is this ladder, and again, as Ryan pointed out to me, if you have a taller vehicle, it's probably fine because you've got more rungs available and all the rest, but still not the best of designs. I know there's not a lot they can do there, but that is definitely up there with what I think is a bit of a con. These pegs, whilst works perfectly fine, the first couple times you do them, it's almost dangerous. I have had them snap out on me because I wasn't really totally sure what I was doing. There are video instructions and so on, but I just thought that was a little bit ugh. Now, if you decided to just convert this to a camper van, you're going to find 1,000,001 problems, but you have to think of it as an in-between of a tent and a camper van. It's not fair to compare this really to a camper van, because it's not a camper van. It helps your car become a camper van, but it doesn't make it an actual camper van. As such, there's cost, which could be a pro and could be a con. Now, I bought this with the roof bars and the side awning, and the total came to about £2,000, maybe a bit more. This is the biggest one they do, to be fair. It's not the most expensive one, mind you. The next thing is weight. Now, being honest, difference in MPG is negligible. It's very well balanced. Mind you, I wasn't getting very much out of the Mercedes anyway, but you're probably losing maybe 5-6 miles per gallon, I would say. Depending on how much you were getting in the first place, that's a lot or very little. In an instance where you're maybe lucky to get 30, bringing it down to 25 or so is not really ideal. You're also limited in speed then too. I've heard various reports between 60 and 70 miles per hour what people say you should do. I'll be honest, I've had it at 70. I don't feel comfortable doing any more than that. People say, oh well, that's the speed limit anyway. Yeah, but if you go to overtake somebody in the motorway to get back down to 70, you're still going above 70. Anyway, difference of driving on the car though, I didn't really notice. I felt it psychologically, but actual driving characteristics of the car, there wasn't really any difference. But you do get the odd bit of whistle with the roof bars and things, which I guess is expected. However, if you do decide you don't want to keep it on all the time, that's a con. Now obviously, it's a bit easier to store than a camper van, like where you're going to hide a camper if you live in the suburbs, but it's a big, heavy thing for you to be lifting on and off. It took at least 3 of us to get it onto there. That's why it's still on there, because I just thought, no, I can't be bothered taking that off. Now, I don't know what the long-term effects of that much weight on suspension all the time will have. Who knows, but it's just something you might need to think about. So, the TentBox XL, what do I think? To be honest, I have actually fallen in love with the thing. It looks cool. I kind of like the whole adventure vibe thing, even though I don't really do it very much. I'm kind of fond of it. Would I have it over a camper van? If I had the money for a good camper van, I'd probably buy a camper van. But as you can see, we have space, and not flexing, but we do have camper vans here. But if you don't have the space for a camper van, or you can't be bothered with the maintenance and upkeep of another vehicle, the TentBox is the perfect solution. Short of getting one of those trailer tent things, which to be honest I don't really see the point in, because you still have to get out of your car and into the wet to set it up anyway, and then you don't have any height. This is probably your best answer. Now, it can go on to nearly any car, so basically whatever you have, it'll be fine. I've seen Mark II Golfs with them on as well, which I've strongly considered doing, but those roof gutters are too expensive, too hard to find to risk wrecking, so I ain't gonna do that. But I honestly think that for this summer, in this country, when you don't really know whether you're gonna have the weather that weekend to go away somewhere, to not have to worry about actually preparing anything and just hopping into the car and going, this is probably the perfect solution. Now, you do need to look into things like campsites in your local area, whether they let them in. Some can be funny, some can't. Join the TentBox support groups on Facebook and stuff like that, and you'll learn it all. That's where I learned basically all of it. But yeah, that's my thoughts on the TentBox. I give it a thumbs up. I'm happy enough with it, so if you're contemplating it, go for it. But for now, this has been 427 Motorsports. I've been Tomo. If you haven't subscribed already, hit the subscribe button. Check out the Discord if you want to talk cars with people. Or you want to talk TentBox, I suppose. But there's enough groups for that. We don't need to add another one into the mix. If you want to support us, check out our web store, 427motorsports.co.uk, and see you in the next one. Good luck.